Hello, welcome back to Book Nerd TV. Today I'm going to discuss the book Ace, What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society, and the Meaning of Sex. It's written by Angela Chen and was published in September of 2020 and is put out by Beacon Press. Ace is part memoir, part interview, and also part textbook defining what asexuality means within this larger society. If you are not aware, asexuality is a part of the LGBTQIA plus community of identities that empowers people who identify as gay or lesbian or queer or asexual or intersex or transgender or non-binary. It's all of those different ways of being, of existing and interacting with the world contained within this bit of a ready reference, I guess, which may be sort of a glib way to say, I guess it's easier for the media and for people in general to wrap their heads around what this is when they've got a label. And I guess that's true when they've got a label or they've got a thing, they've got a word, they've got a label or a nomenclature. Maybe that's a better word to say than label. They've got this nomenclature by which they can use to refer to and identify different ways of being in the world. There are many layers to this book, to Ace. And Angela Chen is a person, I guess, that this is one of those books that you would call Own Voices, although I think right now Own Voices, while it started out as, again, another nomenclature, another way to identify sort of the actual experience of people who identify as, and then whatever the identity is. But now I think is maybe being slightly sort of commercialized and capitalized on. And so it may be used sometimes in a problematic fashion, but that's not what I'm discussing here. Angela Chen states clearly in the book that she identifies as asexual. And so this book is partly about her journey to that self-discovery. And it is a very interesting journey that she took, trying to understand why, as she developed through her sort of teenage years, young adulthood, why she was encountering the issues that she was encountering and trying to discover whether there was something wrong with her. Was there something that she could fix about herself so that she could fit in better with her peers and in society in general, because her experiences were beginning to contrast and even clash in some instances with what she thought that she should do and be and have and feel and expect in her life. And according to her book, it wasn't until she encountered the term asexuality and began to explore and to research more into what the concept meant, what the term asexuality meant, that she began to discover experiences and definitions that more closely resembled her experiences. And the revelation that was for her, that experience, that journey, that discovery was for her, really helped her discover who she is, helped her to define the thing that you feel and are. But if there's no terminology, if there's no word, it's harder for you to locate yourself within the spectrum of humanity. And having the term asexuality helped her to self-define for herself who she was and how she was in this society that is so seemingly obsessed with sex and sexual attraction and sexual attractiveness, and how all of that is the sort of foundation of how people interact with each other in the United States. And so what she does do, however, that I think maybe some other books written about asexuality hasn't done very well or very much of, is to include the voices of BIPOC. the voices of people who are not usually included when people write books about asexuality or when they write textbooks about asexuality. And what Chen does is include stories from people who are BIPOC, people who are disabled, people whose voices are usually sort of pushed to the side or not acknowledged, or just people who are usually marginalized continue to be marginalized even in the asexual community. Their voices are not always heard, and how BIPOC and disabled folks have to navigate not only the larger society, but the asexual community, right, is a thing. It's not the same, right? Because so often BIPOC peoples are stereotyped around their sexuality. Black people, Asian people, Latinx people are routinely, indigenous people as well, are routinely stereotyped as hypersexual, oversexed. It's just all these ridiculous, prejudiced, racist notions about the other, and which in this case are BIPOC, or the non-sexuality of peoples who are disabled. There are so many intersections and cross sections and just so many ways for people to be in the world. You can be an indigenous, woman identified, disabled person who is asexual. You can be a Black, aromantic, able-bodied, non-binary person who is asexual. And it is important for the larger asexual community to hear those voices and to deliberately include those voices when they're discussing the experiences of asexuality in the United States in 2021. I really enjoyed Ace by Angela Chen. I really enjoyed the fact that she used her personal experience to guide you along the path to explain and to understand, or to begin to explain and to begin to understand the asexual orientation. And she does spend some time defining allosexual versus asexual, right? Allosexuals who experience sexual attraction, asexual people who don't. And she gives us a version of the differing experiences. She juxtaposes those two definitions so that she can, I think, better explain the experience that she had, trying to understand why her experiences were not quite the same as her peers, why she just felt like she didn't quite fit in, or if there was something wrong with her, which I think asexuals as a community pretty much had that experience. And I think that confusion is not uncommon. Let me say that. Maybe not every person who identifies as asexual sort of had that. I feel like I'm seeing the world differently, or people are having different experience than I'm having. Why is that? I think she does a pretty good job of describing that in the book. And then, of course, she goes on, like I said, to include the voices of people who are maybe not traditionally considered or thought of when people mention asexual as an orientation. She brings up those marginalized POC and disabled voices. She discusses asexuality within the context of feminism. She discusses asexuality within the context of those hypersexualized stereotypes around Black people, around Asian people, around Latinx people, around indigenous people, just around people who are generally considered as other by the larger society. Those experiences and those voices are so very important to the larger asexual experience, and they need to be heard. So I'm glad to have read that. I'm glad for that inclusion in her book. Overall, Ace was a very worthwhile read. So if you have no idea about asexuality or asexual persons, Ace is a really good introduction for you. And the fact that there are personal stories interwoven within this book, I think, help bring the reader along to understand that these are the experiences of actual people, and not just sort of staying to textbook definitions of asexuality and sort of the breakdown and all that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? Because I enjoy nonfiction of that stripe as well. So it's just that I think that Ace, for the general public, is probably an easier read, probably an easier digestible read than something that's a little more textbook-like. And from listening, because I did listen to the book via Audible, from listening to the book, I feel that Chen accomplished her goal of explaining the journey of one person moving to the self-discovery of herself as asexual, and giving you some history and just some general information regarding asexuality, and then including, again, all of these voices that are traditionally marginalized. Again, a worthwhile read. June is Pride Month, and if you want to read something that is relevant to Pride Month, picking up this book is a really worthwhile read. Well, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, remember to leave me a like. If you have watched more than one of my videos, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. I am so grateful to the book nerd veterans who have hung with me from, 2 years ago? Has it been 2 years? I think it may be 2 years now. And for those of you who are perhaps watching my video for the first time, welcome, welcome. I hope you stick around. We are absolutely happy for you to become part of the book nerdery, around these parts. Remember to be safe, be patient, and be kind. And I will see you in the next video.